Melanie Smithson is one of our own. She's a NAMI Santa Fe member, and she's also on the NAMI New Mexico State Board of Directors. She's the co-owner of Smithson Clinic Incorporated with her husband, Gail Smithson, in Santa Fe. She's a licensed professional counselor, a board-certified dance movement therapist, a certified Sedona method coach. Maybe she could tell us a little bit about what that is. A certified hypnotherapist and certified Life Between Lives practitioner. She's also the author of the award-winning book, Stress Free in 30 Seconds, A Slightly Irreverent Approach to Navigating Life's Challenges, which is what she will be presenting tonight. She'll be guiding us through some practical no-cost strategies to manage stress and navigate life's challenges with ease and joy. And she's welcome to tell a little bit more about herself and then get right into her book and her presentation tonight. Just so everybody knows, if you have questions that pertain to the moment of something she said that you don't understand, you want her to clarify, she's fine with you stopping her and asking. But if it's something that can wait, just place them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of her talk. So with that, take it away, Melanie.
Great, thanks, Betty. And I think Betty has said enough about me, and we should just talk about stress. I will tell you, this is something I have been working with in my practice. I feel like almost everything within the realm of psychotherapy can fall into stress, into the category of stress. And so I'm going to try and get 30 years worth of work into 30 minutes tonight. See how that goes.
Okay.
All right. So first off, I want to say that in the 30 years that my husband and I have been running the clinic and working in the healthcare industry, me as a mental health care practitioner, him as a, we'll just say, crazy energy practitioner, functional medicine. The words "I'm just stressed" or "it's just stressed," "it's just stress" show up so often, and really more times than we can count. And I find it's really one of the most overused responses to the question, "How are you?" And we respond with, "Oh, I'm just a little stressed," or "I am fine." And these words actually do very little to support moving through the experience. So in that way, it's also a misunderstood experience because it's so individual. What stresses me out doesn't stress you out. What stresses you out doesn't stress me out. So that, makes it complicated. The other thing is that we're also very dismissive of the stress that we do feel. And very, very often, stress is what's driving our physical ailments. So whether, dealing with an upset stomach, a pain in the neck, or even MS, stress is either the driving factor or a contributing factor. We use stress as a catch-all word when we feel angry, when we feel sad, when we feel overwhelmed, when we think things aren't going my way, I can't get it done, I'm not doing it right. Instead of actually naming those experiences, what we do is we say, "I'm just a little stressed." And one of my mentors actually suggested that I drop the word from my vocabulary. And I actually did, other than writing a book about it. But that said, we will get into more about that in a little bit. But first, I'm going to talk to you about, I'm just going to real quickly, because I think we know what stress is, but the definition in the dictionary is the body's reaction to a change that requires a physical, mental, or emotional adjustment or response. I'm going to say it one more time, and I want you to listen to how broad this definition is. It's the body's reaction to a change. What change? That requires a physical, a mental, or an emotional adjustment or response. So the definition itself is so broad, it's no wonder that we throw so many things into that category. Stress can also be personal. It can be my experience of moving from Colorado to New Mexico. It could be the loss of a job, or it could be global, which many of us are feeling right now. So the good news is that because it's such a global experience, it actually comes down to really more about how we navigate. So all of the strategies I'm going to be offering tonight can be applied to big stress, little stress, personal stress, global stress. So one quick little piece about what happens in the body or how the body is affected by stress. This is a very non-technical version and it's very abbreviated. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So, stress increases inflammation in the body. That inflammation causes the body to make more cortisol. That cortisol taxes the adrenal glands, which can lead to blood sugar dysregulation, which can lead to insomnia, stubborn weight, digestive issues, joint pain, and immune dysregulation, which means it can suppress or fire up the autoimmune system. So when we say it's just stress, I mean, it's not fair and it's not accurate because it's actually really a driving factor for a lot of problems. So I want you to just take a minute and check in with yourself and notice the way you register stress in your body. So just think about something that has recently upset you or stressed you out. And you might notice a holding in your shoulders. You might notice your stomach clenching. There's always some place in the body that we hold stress or emotions. Knowing where you hold it is important because it will help you move through. So the other thing I want you to just, for now, check in with yourself. What happens when you're in stress mode? Do you feel like you're operating at your best? And if anybody says yes, I'd really like to know how, because it's not my experience. When we're stressed, we're not operating well, we're not responding well, we're not doing our work well. And then I don't think we'll throw this, thought we'd throw this into the chat, but I think it'll get too messy. When you think about your biggest stressors, and maybe think about your partner stresses, your kid stressors, your neighbor stressors, is there anything that you feel stressed about that they don't feel stressed about, or that you might imagine that they feel stressed about and you don't feel stressed about? So I can't see very many of you, so I can't even tell if heads are nodding. So I'm just going to speak as if I know what you're doing and what you're saying. So the one thing that all of these different stressors, some of us get stressed by the traffic, some of us get stressed by our kids, some of us get stressed by our spouse, some of us get stressed by what we eat or what we don't eat. It's just the list goes on and on and on and on. But what they all tend to have in common is the fact that we resist them, that we don't like them, that we want to control them, that we want to fix them. And that is really where there is for us to work with them. So before I go any further, I actually want to say that the title of this talk, not your typical stress talk or not your everyday stress talk, is important because we're going to be looking at some more advanced skills. It's NAMI National sent out an email today with a bunch of stress strategies, and all of those basic strategies are important. And, taking time for yourself and what else? I have this list right here. Stay in therapy, stay hydrated. Those are all critically important. I will tell you, I think they also missed a couple of really critically important basic things that I'm just going to kind of throw out quickly. Watch your sugar intake. Going through the holidays and eating a lot of sugar is just a bad strategy. Sugar adds to the dysregulation of your blood sugar. It makes it harder to manage your feelings. Move your body more. We'll talk about that in more detail. Get out, get some fresh air. So all of those basics. And the other piece I wanted to share was about Hannah Kroger, and some of you may know her name. She founded a church in Boulder, and she was quoted as saying in her 90s that there's no such thing as stress. Just mind, I'll say messing, but that's not the word she used. So I'll say that again. There's no such thing as stress, just mind blank. The mind messes with us and it tells us all kinds of things that create havoc in our system. So learning how to navigate the thoughts and feelings, which are generally based in reaction to the outside world, is where we get some power. And a lot of the way we are activated by the outside world is also internally driven because we're always, whether we acknowledge it or not, asking, how am I going to deal with this? How is this going to affect me? And yes, it is a me world. As much as we, and I'm not saying we don't care about other people, but the first place that we go is, how is this going to affect me? And then based on how we figure out what's happening in the outside world and how it might impact us, then we go into this place of, oh, but I'm not going to be able to handle it. And oh, I'd better do this. And I start worrying about it and I start stressing about it. And all of these thoughts and these feelings and these sensations create the experience of what we call stress. So before we get into all the great strategies that I'm going to give you for dealing with it, I am going to actually lead us through, I'll call it kind of a Sedona method release, maybe a little bit of meditation, visualization. And even if you don't know what Sedona method is, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to ask everybody to just take a little breath. And you can do this with your eyes open or your eyes closed. And just allow yourself to notice whatever it is you might be noticing in this moment. The sound of my voice, any other external sounds, any internal sounds, and also notice sensation. Body in contact with the furniture, maybe some discomfort, neck, back, shoulders. And for now, simply noticing as best you can without needing to do anything with them. And then could you also notice any thoughts arising in this moment? Any emotions that may be present? And could you also notice any wanting to change anything about your current experience? Again, just noticing everything that's arising, noticing all the resistance or any resistance to what's arising, And as best you can, could you let go of wanting to change what's here right now? And then could you imagine taking a step back from yourself, stepping away from your own thoughts, stepping away from your own emotions? Perhaps 1 foot is enough. Perhaps you need to go 20 feet. How far do you need to go to get a little space from yourself? And from this distance, you might find that you have a little more compassion for what you're going through. You might find some humor in the human experience. Perhaps you can even notice all things arise in awareness, and you're not actually doing any of it. And if the mind goes, "What'd she just say?" Never mind. Just giving yourself a little breath, a little space from the thoughts and feelings. And then taking a breath, letting that go as we move on. Okay, so I just gave you one strategy that we'll go into a little more deeply in a minute. And I threw in the concept of resistance. And I previously mentioned dropping the word stress from your vocabulary. So that's strategy number one. And by the way, the way this is going to go, I'm going to give you 5 pretty broad strategies. And then we're going to go into pretty specific strategies for going through the holidays. So, general strategy number 1, dropping the word stress. Why should we do that? Well, since you asked, the problem, again, with the word stress is that we use it as a catch-all. We use it to describe anything and everything that we might be experiencing. And when we say, "I'm stressed," the body responds to that with more stress. It creates a contraction in the body and it doesn't help to move a feeling. So rather than using the word stress, I recommend getting more specific with what you're experiencing. So if I were to say to myself, or you were to say to yourself, "I'm very concerned that I'm not going to be able to get everything done in the time frame that I have." That's actually validating what's happening right now. If I say to myself, "I feel like I can't keep up," that's validating. If I say, "I feel so much grief about what's happening in the world," that's validating. When you validate a feeling, it settles the nervous system. And by the way, same thing with others. It's like a child says to you, "I'm angry." Rather than saying to them, "What are you angry about?" If you say to them, "Wow, you're really angry," that's going to go a lot further. Just feeling heard, either by somebody external to you or to yourself, is going to shift the experience. So way too often we look for somebody else to validate what we are feeling. And sure, it's great when, my husband says, "Oh, I get it. You're really tired. You've been working so hard." But I can also do that for myself. And really, who knows better what I need than I do? So strategy number 1, validate the experience. Drop the word stress. Okay, strategy number 2, We just already did it together. Step away from yourself. And yes, it's true. Wherever you go, there you are. I remember when I moved from New York to Santa Fe 30 some odd years ago before I moved up to Colorado. I'm in the subway and I'm so excited about, the problem friends that I'm leaving and the issues that I don't have to deal with anymore. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, damn it, I'm taking myself with me. So wherever we go, our issues are going with us. But we can take a break from ourselves. We can step back. We could say, you know what? I can put this upset on pause for the moment. And again, when you can do that, it does two things. One, it gives you a break, it gives you a place to breathe, to reset, but also it gives you a little bit of distance where you might see more options, more possibilities. Okay. Any questions coming in on the two strategies I've covered yet? Everybody's good? Okay. Okay. Strategy number 3, and I did mention this as we were going through, is the concept of resistance. I'm guessing many of you have heard the expression, certainly if you've worked with me, you've heard the expression, what we resist persists. Resisting something is actually basically gluing it to you. And I'll speak specifically to thoughts and feelings, which move through our awareness much like waves on the ocean. And they say we have 55 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And so many of them we don't even pay attention to. But what happens when a feeling comes along or a thought comes along that we don't like, instead of just letting it come and be like the wave and crash in the sand, we get in the way of it. We say, stop. And unfortunately, we're kind of successful about this. We wind up stopping the emotion, holding it in our body, or stopping the thought and circulating around and around and around about it, instead of just going, well, that was an interesting thought, huh? But we are so identified with our thoughts, we think that they are who we are, so we start to resist them because it's not okay that we think that. And the truth is, thoughts come and go. So, for a minute, again, let's just do a little practice with this. Think about something, either about yourself, about another, about the weather, about the world, that you feel some resistance to, that you wish would be different than the way it is. And for a moment, just let yourself really resist it. Let yourself want it to be different. And you probably notice some tightness in the body. And just for now, just to see how it might feel, could you let go of resisting that? Would you? So one of the things, one of the places people get confused around this is thinking that resistance is actually going to make things better, that they're actually going to change because they've resisted something. Quite the opposite is true. We give it more energy and we increase the probability of it happening. All right. So the other thing I do want to say is I'm going through a lot of big strategies in a short amount of time. So you're not going to be able to implement them all overnight unless you're freaking amazing, which you probably are anyway. But take what really resonates and what's going to really be useful for you. Okay, strategy number 4, access strength through the body. Breathe, shake, stomp. There is a video going around Facebook now, which I couldn't share because I don't have permission and I don't want to get NAMI in trouble with copyright laws. But the video is of a kid in the grocery store getting upset because he can't have this and that. And the mom throws herself on the floor and throws a real fit and says, "Let me show you how it's done." Throwing a fit is good medicine. Most of us think we're not allowed to do it after 3 or 4 years old, but I can't believe that there is anybody in this space or anybody in the world right now that doesn't want to throw a fit sometimes. And letting your body do that is really good medicine. So less through the mouth, more through the hands, through the feet, through the hips, through the elbows, through the knees. It's like, let it out. And I have to add this, despite what you may have been told, feeling your feelings is the opposite of weak. It takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to face your feelings. So don't listen to anyone that tells you otherwise. Okay, strategy number 5, play. Play, 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 play. I could easily have spent all the time talking about play. Instead, I'm going to kind of break it down into a couple of short sentences. And Jessica, I don't know if all the information went up yet, but if you email me or text me at the number that Jessica's either already put in the chat or is putting in the chat, or or send me your email, I will send you lots of different ways to play. I will send you a stress-free recording. I will send you some Sedona method stuff. I'll send you a whole bunch of really good stuff. So if that interests you, go ahead and do that. But play is where we rejuvenate, where we replenish, where we recharge. It's different from rest in that it taps us into creativity and it connects us to others. It produces all the good hormones and endorphins and all the things that are good for the brain. And it's really, really a tragedy that we get told at 7 years old, that we are too old to play, because play is something that we are meant to do throughout our lifetimes. There is a concept called neoteny, and it speaks to the fact that humans are neotenous creatures actually designed to play throughout our lifetimes. And play is not something that we just do, it's like so often we hear, "Oh, I don't have any time to play." But play can also be embedded. I think of it as an attitude. And how do we play with everything? How do we play with our thoughts? How do we play with what's happening right here, right now, so that it's easier to get through it? My book, which I will also reference before we finish here today, Stress Free in 30 Seconds, is got a lot of play approaches in it. And we'll do a special offer, and it's available on Kindle. Okay. I'm going to stop and breathe for a minute. Who wants to breathe with me? Again, trying to do 30 years worth of work in 30 minutes. All right, got through the 5 strategies. We're doing okay? Okay.
Great.
All right, holiday tips. So the holiday tips I have broken down into 3 parts: holiday prep, travel, and the event itself. So holiday prep, self-care, let go of perfection. It'll get done or it won't. And nobody's going to care. So some years ago, I finally got smart enough to recognize that my enjoying myself at the event was more important than whether I got the food perfect. So for those of you that are hosting, It'll happen or it won't. People are coming to see you. They're coming to spend time with you. It doesn't matter if you've got that package, that present wrapped to perfection. It doesn't matter what you're serving. It doesn't matter if your house is all that clean. People just want to be with you. And again, I do know telling you let go of perfection when you've been a perfectionist your whole life is not going to happen overnight unless it does, but maybe just loosen the grip a little bit. Two, I just want to address travel. If you are planning to travel for the holidays, remember that your safety comes first. If you can't get there because of weather, if you can't get there because you're sick, don't go. It's okay. And if somebody is disappointed because you can't make it, that's theirs to work with. So, same thing if you are disappointed that somebody can't come to you, still that's your feeling. So, one of the things I know people use the expression, oh, I'm so disappointed, as a way to control and manipulate. What I've been saying to my clients for years about this is the appropriate response to somebody that says, I'm so disappointed in you, is, well, I sure hope you know how to handle your feelings. Okay. The event itself. So I have a really fun game that you can play if you're going to an event and you expect there to be problematic things happening. Like Uncle Joe is going to get drunk and he's going to say something inappropriate, or mom is going to say, why are you wearing that? Or Aunt Sue is, when are you going to have children? All of those things that drive you crazy when you go to some sort of family or holiday event. And by the way, um, this also works at work, at the holiday parties. When you're anticipating stuff, what you do is you create yourself a dysfunctional bingo board. And you put all of these things that you're afraid are going to happen on the dysfunctional bingo board. And then every time they happen, you get a bingo chip or you get to cross off that box. So when they say those things that you've been dreading them saying, or they do those things that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that, you get a win. And this is just a way to make light of this. And you can do this. You can put a piece of paper in your pocket. You can, if you're in your own home, you can put it in your room, or you can do it in your head. But the concept is going to work no matter what. Okay, so that's the first strategy for dealing with the holiday itself. The second, and this is really big, this might be the most important thing I've said tonight, is don't go into defending yourself. Don't take the bait. When we defend ourselves, and this is from A Course in Miracles for those of you that are familiar, when I defend, I am attacked. It's the process of defending myself that creates the feeling of being attacked. Somebody can walk into the room and tell me, you're doing a really lousy job tonight, or you're a lousy therapist, or do any of those things. And if I say to them, it's nice that you think that. I'm good. But if I start explaining and justifying how good I am at what I do, then my body starts to feel like there's an issue. So, especially this year, with the political conversations that we're all avoiding like the plague, well, except for those that aren't, except for those that are going to ask you to justify and defend the way that you voted the way that you did, or why you feel the way that you do not take the bait. I actually started to recognize that, when somebody asks you to defend yourself, what they're doing is they're actually trying to weaken you. They're not trying to support you. They're not trying to understand you. Now, of course, there are exceptions. You know who those people are that really want to understand you. Um, so I want to say a little bit more about this because letting go of defending yourself is not that easy because somebody gets in your face and obviously you want to get back in theirs. First thing, take a breath and just, hopefully think of what I'm saying, oops, they're trying to bait me. How can I back up? How can I take a breath? How can I take care of myself? What sensation is arising in me? Um, and then the other piece around that is this is something I learned in school, is to actually physically turn your body. And this is an Aikido practice because when something is being targeted at us, if we can allow it to go past us energetically, it's going to shift how we receive it. Okay. Now, the other thing that goes hand in hand with letting go of defending yourself is actually the need for boundaries. And again, this is one of those things that's a complicated topic. Many people feel like, oh, I don't know how to do boundaries. I'm not good at boundaries. And I just want to name that there are so many ways to set a boundary. You can create a boundary simply by giving yourself a little bit more space. You can create a boundary by turning your back on somebody. You can create a boundary with your words. You can say, stop it. You can leave the room. You can energetically put yourself in a bubble. So critically important when you are working with people coming at you. So I realize it is now 20 of, and I really want to open us up to questions, even though I have a few more things I could say. So let's check. Are there questions?
There is a question in the chat from Jonathan. Question for Melanie. We seem to live in a transactional culture which sets certain expectations for how an interaction and outcome should occur. Do you think our society or anyone's society, nation, or culture should be obligated to create a milieu that reduces stress?
A milieu that reduces stress.
Jonathan, if you want to
You want to
clarify?
hop on?
Yeah,
I get the whole transactional society. Yes, yes, we do a lot of transactions.
let's see. Is Jonathan still on?
Yeah, the example I give is the what I took from the last election. I'm not going to talk about outcomes, but what I took from it was there was quite a bit of feelings of people being minimized, feeling outside, not being recognized, and the goals that were being set was all about economy.
Mhm.
So again, a transactional relationship to how an individual feels. And that whole feeling as you defining yourself through the economics of your life, which seems to me one layer of life only, or one layer of how you should feel things, is transactional. And I think it doesn't maximize all the things that you've been talking about.
Right.
And I'm wondering if we should set different, if we can talk about different goals. I know it's a broad question I asked you.
Yeah. Um,
And you don't have to answer it, but
well, I have a lot of thoughts about this, as you might imagine. Um, you know, if I was going to change the world, I would start with the children. I would teach children about validating feelings and learning how to move with feelings and teach kindness and respect. And it absolutely would change the world. I have considered writing a book, what they didn't teach us in kindergarten. Um, but I think I think it is a very broad question. I'm not sure I can answer all of it, but I'll speak to the transactional nature of relationships, which is which is the way we seem to do relationships, like I'll be good to you if you're good to me. And it it doesn't actually speak to our true nature. Our true nature is to give without wanting anything in return. And if we could just learn that, if we could learn how to do relationships from a place of giving, and on the flip side, we're not very good at receiving. So learning also how to receive. But instead of learning these experiences of how do I offer without expectation? How do I let somebody give to me without feeling like I have to give back? It's like it keeps us in this terrible push-pull where we don't get to be. So, so Jonathan, I don't think I came close to answering your question, but whatever we can do to, support moving through emotions, moving through what we call stress. Yes.
Okay, is anybody else? Oh, did you have something
No,
else?
I don't want to, if someone else has a question, be glad to, but I could further take this question to other levels, but I'd allow others to participate, please.
Okay. Do I see any hands up? Any other questions, comments?
So I am kind of curious. Nobody's worried about how they're going to get through the holidays. There's no particular situations that anybody is, or even navigating what's going on in the world.
I
Well,
actually think that you
I'm stressed.
captured it so well. Oh, sorry, I'm talking over, but I related to every single thing that you said so deeply that, but I don't know that I would have thought of this ahead of time to think I should prepare myself for these situations because I think we're all just kind of crashing into this season trying to keep up. So I thought it was such a, everything you said was just I resonated with all of it, I guess is what I'm gonna say.
All right, well, I do see, I have some more stuff I could say, but I see a hand up, so let's check with Nancy.
Nancy? Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Roberta, actually.
Oh, Roberta, yeah.
It's Nancy. Hi.
I can't see the one of you, so no, there you go. I can see you now. Good.
All right. I'm very angry about the elections and the implication for the world.
Yes,
I think I'm not alone in that.
yes,
And I hold a lot of that anger in my body.
yes,
And I can theorize, oh, everything's going to be okay for me. I'm a
maybe.
privileged white person who is retired.
Yeah,
I'm not going to see the destruction that will ensue. I
yeah,
mean, I will see some of it, but I won't see all of it. It's my grandkids. It's
yep,
the persons of color. It's
yep,
the immigrants and so on who under Trump before had their children yanked from their arms and put in cages.
yes,
So what to do with those, with the world anguish and the anguish of of the others. There's so
yeah,
much othering. I mean, othering is now the word of the day.
yeah. So, I'm really glad you asked the question because I know many of us are struggling with this. Not everyone, but many of us. Um, and what there is to do is to feel the feelings, to feel how anger lands in your body and to breathe into it. So, um, for everyone, I don't know if you remember Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. We hold emotions in the body. They lodge in a particular place. It's not as general as she speaks to it. For me, I feel anger in my throat. I tend to feel sadness in my heart or my stomach. And the more we can actually just breathe into the sensation and allow what is in the body to sequence out, the more present we can be for the world. So I did a lot of crying this week. And I am fortunate that I didn't have anybody telling me to stop doing that. And that's what I had to do. For me, it's grief, and it's complicated grief. And again, not everybody is feeling what I'm feeling, and I really want to respect that. But recognizing that there is sadness, there is fear, there is anger, there is confusion, all of that is like a whole package. I would call it complicated grief for a lot of us.
Mhm.
So taking apart all of the pieces and actually feeling into them, feeling them in the body. And then if there's a way that your feelings like to move. So for me, dancing is my outlet. So, and I can put anything into movement. I can put anger into movement. I can put sadness into movement. I can put confusion into movement. And in fact, I am writing a new book, and the book is How to Use the Body to Let Go. And that will be released next year. But critically important, how do I get it out of the body? Because I don't need to get sick in all of this. I need to be strong. I need to be able to tap into light. I need to be able to lead as best I can and support those that are struggling. So if it's not dancing, is it take a piece of paper and do pastel, drawing stuff, and how do you get it out? How do you sequence it out of your body? Another great thing to do is to use your imagination. So this is a release from the Sedona method. Those of you that have worked with me before have heard this release. It goes like this: if nobody would ever know and there would be no consequences, what would you do to them? And this is a time, it's like, so one of the problems in the New Age movement and a lot of teaching is like, oh, don't be violent, don't be mean. And it's like, you know, we have violence in us. It's hardwired. And it's our job to own our individual violent tendencies, not by acting them out, but by feeling them and finding a way to move them. So when we can let ourselves imagine shaking the shit out of somebody, it's going to help us move that feeling. And then we can be more present, and then we can get back to love. But as long as we're pushing anything down, we can't feel everything. So, Roberta, I no longer see you. How is this landing for you?
Hello,
Hello?
I'm here. Can you
Yeah.
see me?
No, I don't see you. I hear you.
Okay. Well, it's helpful. It's helpful. I have the moving body is obviously I have to do that. I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
And separating out the components of my uh my collected
Yeah.
feelings and giving them all honoring them all and permitting them all.
Yes.
And the idea of doing this in order to become present and to
Yes.
return to love.
Yes.
Thank you. That gives me a context to
Great.
work with.
Yeah. Journaling is also another phenomenal practice.
Okay, thank you for that, Melanie. There is another question from Deborah Volstead. I am not worried about the holidays, but I am worried of how I am going to deal with caretaking my mother, who does not make caretaking her easy because of her personality, who is manipulative, and I am very sensitive. Big challenge for me.
Yeah. So, who's this question from?
Deborah?
Deborah. So, Deborah, it's more complicated than I can address in its entirety right here, because I imagine that your mom manipulates and controls in different ways than others do, because everybody's so good and unique at that. But I will speak a little bit to sensitivity. I think sensitivity is our superpower. I think it's something that this culture minimizes and dismisses as weakness. And I think it's fantastic that we are sensitive, that we can feel things, that we can experience things. If you can't feel, I mean, if you don't let yourself feel everything, it's like you can't decide I'm just going to feel joy without feeling anger. You can't decide I'm not going to be I'm not saying that well, so I'm going to skip it and say something else instead. The other thing that I teach about sensitivity is that it does not equal reactivity. So sensitivity is feeling what's happening in the environment. So if your mom says something like, oh, well, you didn't do that right, and why aren't you here more often, or any of those kind of things, what there is, or what you can do is just kind of notice how that's landing for you and breathe with it without reacting to her. So the more you react or resist or justify or explain to her, the more you're caught in it. So, if you would like to email me with a more specific question, I will be happy to respond.
Okay. Thank you. And there is another comment or question, let's see, from Brian Sanford. I've learned that I need to be defined by what I love, not what I hate.
Yes,
I work hard to make that happen, but it is so hard not to be hurt by people who are defined by what they hate.
yes,
Wonder if you have any strategies for that, not in the moment, but overall.
yes,
Understood if you can't get to this question.
yes.
Okay,
So
Brian.
I'll get to it as best I can. One, you might even play with not defining yourself. And but more focusing on this is what I love and this is what I'm going to pay attention to, because that which we pay attention to multiplies. So I'm just going to focus on I'm going to focus on the smell of the flowers. I'm going to focus on petting the dog. I'm going to focus on playing with the kids, because that's how I source and resource. And there are people in the world that aren't going to do that. Oh, well, not my problem. So as best you can, separating yourself, let go of wanting them to be the same as you are and do what you do. And then the one particular strategy is to put yourself in an energy bubble to create it. I like to go through the chakras, imagine it coming up from inside, going all around me, creating whatever color I need when I'm going into a challenging situation. So,
Wow.
talking just as fast as I can.
Yeah, good. Any other? Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. These are all great. Great questions, great answers. What, anybody else have their hand up? I don't see anything in the chat. I want to remind everybody, hopefully nobody will need this over the holidays, but we have a 24/7 crisis line, 988. If it gets to that point that somebody needs to call. Also, if you need support from NAMI, we have our family support groups that meet every Monday at 6 p.m. The next one will be in person at our office at 313 Camino Elite. And then we also have Connection Recovery Support Group for individuals with a mental health challenge, meets every Monday at 3:30 via Zoom. You can go to our website, www.namisantafe.com or org.
And Betty, just one last thing. I
Yeah,
told everybody I
and
don't make a
and
book
register there. Yeah, go ahead.
offer. if you contact me in the next week or so, my book, Stress Free in 30 Seconds, full of stress and play strategies for dealing with many different challenges, is $10 plus shipping for, I don't know, the end of the month, till the end of the month. So it's more than that on my website. Don't go there. Just send me an email or send me a text. Let me know that you want it and we'll work it out.
That's a nice offer. Thank you, Melanie. Anything else? Any of our NAMI people want to add to, add something in terms of an announcement, or? Tom, Jessica, Jonathan, Craig? Well, thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you so much, Melanie, for some of those great strategies.
You're very welcome.
I will take you up on your offer for the book. I'm I'm feeling the stress even before the holidays, so
Yes,
I'm sorry, I'm supposed to erase that word from my vocabulary.
I know. Like I said, I erased it except for writing the book.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Um,
thank you,
say-
everyone. Have a great holiday. Everything's coming up here.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in January.
great. Good night, everybody. Thank you for
Good night.
coming.
Thank you, Melanie. Very nice talk.